Welcome to the Modernize or Die Podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to Modernize or Die Podcast, CFML News Edition. It's episode 175, December 13th, 2022. I'm Gavin, Pickin, and I'm joined today by Dan Cad. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. How's it going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. We're doing well. We're getting some comments on some feedback.
Have you got your thing muted?
Well, actually, since you're echoing badly, Gavin, could it be mine?
Hold on. Do you have you got speakers on?
I do not. I actually just go right over the computer, but that's how I usually do it. And let me make sure my Zoom is off. Well, I can't do the mute. So I don't know.
Apparently it's good to Scott, so maybe we're okay.
All right.
After the last couple of weeks of technical difficulties, hopefully that's as bad as we get.
It's only up from here.
Hopefully. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And it's Christmas season coming up, a lot of things going on, but thanks for making the time. I know that a couple of you are waiting for the Argentina soccer match, or football match, so we better get this on the road. So thanks to our sponsor, Order Solutions, the makers of ColdBox, CommandBox, ForgeBox, TestBox, and all the other boxes out there. And how can they say thanks, Dan?
Nothing to say thanks. All right. Well, good thing. Okay, sorry, I was monitoring the chat, and looks like our feedback issue is done. All right, a couple ways to say thank you to Order Solutions. Like and subscribe our videos on YouTube. You can help Ortus, as we say, reach for the stars. Basically, you can star and fork our repos. There is a GitHub module that you can do, and I think in the past I've said that it'll highlight all the Ortus solutions, but basically, it's the CommandBox GitHub module. It'll go through and actually star all the GitHub repos that you use in any of your projects, not just the Ortus ones. You can subscribe to our podcast on whatever podcast app that you want to use. Sign up for a free or a paid CFCasts account, which is releasing new content every week, which we'll go into a little bit more later.
Yep.
We also have a box life.
Yep. So and I was going to say, CFCasts, lots of stuff going on there now. But we have that Box Life store. So go check out that if you want some cool order swag. And we got a couple of books we want to spotlight. So the 102 ColdBox HMVC Quick Tips and Tricks on Gumroad, and we'll share that link right here. And then the Modern CFML tips. Modern CFML in 100 minutes. So the free online version is up on modern-cfml.ortusbooks.com. But you can also buy the ebook or the PDF paper copy as well. So those are pasted in the chat there, and then the show notes as well. And then we've got some Patreon supporters too, right? The phenomenal Patreon supporters.
We do. Actually, this is pretty amazing. So we have two goals as part of our Patreon support. Goal number one, we have 43 Patreons that are providing 100% of the funding for the Modernize or Die podcast. And that's through our Patreon site, patreon.com/ortussolutions. And our second goal is actually now we're shooting for fully hosting or fully paying for the hosting for ForgeBox.io. And we're 39% of the way there. So really the community stepping up and supporting it, which is fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Yep. And one of our big Patreons is Tomorrow's Guide. So they've got a job announcement, which we'll cover a little bit later, but just a teaser. Tomorrow's Guide is the fast-paced leader in the UK care sector, catering for care seekers across the 3 areas: care homes, nurseries, and home care. They're often called the TripAdvisor of care sector. You want to give a little tease on what those positions are before we go into more detail?
Yep, definitely. We got 2 positions. One's a senior CF developer. Must be based in the UK, although it can be remote from within the UK. It's a permanent position, approximately £60,000 a year. We'll put the link up there. We also have an automation test engineer, also based in the UK, although it can be remote. Approximately 40,000 euros a year. And we have a link up there. So basically, they have a couple different positions, which are different, which is great.
Yep, and we'll go into more detail in the job section. But thanks again, Tomorrow's Guides, for being one of our top Patreons, and we appreciate it. And hopefully, we can help find someone to fill those roles for you. Okay, so news and announcements. So first up, big announcement is the 12 Days of Christmas Into the Box video releases are in progress. So I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but we released the first one Thursday last week. So 12 Days of Christmas are the 12 business days up until Christmas. So 2 days last week, 5 this week and 5 next week to get out 12. And we were just releasing those videos to our paid subscribers, but we had some internal discussion. We felt guilty for all those people that weren't paid. So now, if you go check that out, there's a lot of free content as well. So every day that we're releasing the content, one of those videos will be free for those unpaid subscribers. But if you are a paid subscriber, you've got lots of goodies. And we'll be talking about the different blog posts as we go through the blog section. But day 1, 2, 3, 4 have been released, and they've got a theme every day. So the first one was sort of big keynotes, so the first and second keynote and the Lucy video. And then we had new modules that were just announced into the box. We had 5. There was actually more, but we could only fit 4 or 5 in a day. And then we released yesterday some additional modules. And then today we're doing ColdBox stuff. Tomorrow will be CommandBox modules. Lots of great stuff coming your way. So tune in for that. And again, it's up on CFCasts, so I'll share the link for that there to get to the CFCast series. But I'm excited. I know that a lot of people love those videos and want to see all the ITB stuff and rewatch it. But again, up until now, it's just been for the ITB ticket holders. But now you guys can check it all out and hopefully spend some time over Christmas getting up to speed with everything ITB related. So what do we got next, Dan?
Good show. All right, so a couple announcements on this. For news announcements, obviously, there's a new CFML blog aggregator. Now, if you remember back in the day, there used to be one. This has been re-released, CFBlogs.org 2.0. The version displays all the blog posts in an attractive 3-column card layout. It displays the open graph image or site image at the top of the post. I pulled it up. The actual address is gregoryalexander.com/CFBlogs. That's the CFBlogs itself. The announcement and the blog thing that Gavin's pulling up is a little bit different. But I'm just cruising this over. There's stuff from Mortis on here. There is stuff from Ben Nadell. There's stuff from Russ Michaels, Adam Cameron.
Oh, Adam Cameron needs more developers. Yep.
Yeah. I just saw that. Never mind. I was gonna make a thing. Hey, he should be a Patreon supporter, but he actually is. So that was kind of a dumb statement. We'll put his thing on the looking for a job section. The Crumb, I'm not quite sure who that is, but a lot of different content on here, which is great. Ray Camden, Gregory, the host, I'm assuming has a plug in there, and Pete Freitag. So there's some good stuff in there.
Yep. So just if you guys didn't know, it's a great way to keep up. And some of the people are no longer blogging about CFML. Like Ray doesn't talk about CFML much anymore, but that's okay. He still has other great stuff, and so you guys can check all those out. It's a great way to see some of that, and I'm actually going to use it for gathering news, because there's a couple of blog posts in there I didn't see it anywhere on Twitter or anywhere on Facebook or anywhere else I look. So I'm going to have to use that, I guess, to try and make sure I don't miss any. So cool.
Makes sense.
And then I just want to remind you that the Adobe Fortuna Alpha is out there. They did have a special video, I think, last week for people who are on the Alpha. So if you're missing out, try and go and sign up. I believe you can still sign up. The beta should be coming out hopefully early next year, because I think they're planning to have like a second quarter release. That's what I've heard whispers of. So keep up with that. But yeah, what's next?
I think it needs to have Carl Orff in the background whenever we play that. Never mind. Don't mind me.
So what's up next, Dan?
The Advent of Code. So some of you, basically, if you ever know what a Kona or a practice thing is, the Advent of Code is not a competition, but basically it's 25 days or 24 days of little problems that you can kind of solve online. Adventofcode.com is the website. You can join. There's a huge leaderboard for everybody. There is, or you can actually make your own. There's a CFML Slack leaderboard, which we'll put the code in the chat. There's also a box team leaderboard. I was actually in one. I still am in one, a private one. And then I realized it was going to be me and Eric. And I got intimidated and stopped doing it. I'm just kidding. But in the first 3 days, I was in first place. I was very excited. And then he had more points than I thought was possible. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. But
yeah, maybe he's doing multiple languages. No, actually, I wasn't. But point. I just saw that there's a Vue.js one. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. So I might go try and do the Vue.js one. I know a lot of people try to do different languages. Maybe, take up some like TypeScript or something, just so they can learn something new or adapt. But the Vue one might be interesting just to see other people's solutions too and see how they do things. So. Yep.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about the multiple languages, because that would give you more points. So basically, if you do it in JavaScript, you do it in, you do it in ColdFusion, you do it in something else, you can like triple your amount of points. All right.
Yeah, sneaky.
Going down.
So I just want to remind you the ColdBox Master Class up on CFCasts is free until the end of the year. So don't forget to sign up for that and before it's too late. Okay. Next up, we have some news and releases. And so the first up, for those of you Mura fans, MasaCMS, which is a fork of that, they have a big security vulnerability fix. So if you're on MasaCMS 7.3, you should be updating to the 7.3.10 immediately. You can be done using the update MasaCMS core option in the menu, or you can do the manual update, but that's pretty important, so make sure you guys do that. There's a few notes that Dan's posting into the chat right now, and they'll be in the show notes, of course. So important to
along
keep
with that,
up to date
new
on
releases. CommandBox 5.7.0 is also out. It comes with a handful of new features, some important library updates. It's been on link up there. So basically, CommandBox just keeps marching on. Every time I look at it, there's something new. I don't know. There's things like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, but now it's easy to do.
Yep, and speaking of CommandBox stuff, the CommandBox Docker images got the update. And just so you know, the Docker version 3.6.3 doesn't mean that it's running CommandBox 3.6.3. It's actually running 5.7.0, but the version of the CommandBox images got different things in it. So it's running the new CommandBox binary. Obviously, it just got released, so it updated. But they've also got some new stuff, and I hadn't seen much about this, so I have to learn more. But the new distro also builds the Red Hat universal base image. That's the UB thing that you might be seeing on a few things like UB9, etc. So that's where the image tags come in. And so yeah, I hadn't actually learned a whole lot about that Docker UB, the universal base image, but I'm really curious what it's about. So obviously it sounds great. Universal base images sound like it's a great way to go, and everything will be more streamlined, especially for the way Docker layers things. If everyone has the same layer, then it should be easy to get up and running. So,
but the whole point behind having a special Docker release then is it's actually kind of not stripped down version of CommandBox, but like the actual footprint of it and the size is smaller, so it boots up faster. Is that basically what it is?
Well, part of it, but I mean, the other thing too is if you were just going to make your own Docker image with CommandBox built on top of Ubuntu or whatever, you wouldn't get all the cool stuff that John added into the Docker container. So if you have secrets or environment variables, like it makes it really easy to use them inside your Docker Compose, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that CommandBox does to make them available. And so that's all the stuff that makes it different from the Lucy image or the Adobe images. All the stuff that John's done basically is sort of in there. And if you want to create pre-warmed up images where it actually starts up, and like you said, when it runs, it actually has like almost zero CommandBox left. So when you get a stripped down version, like .envs and box installs don't work anymore because it's just got runware. Like it's basically just undertow underneath it. Like John says, okay, start this up, and then he'll call it directly. So it skips basically all the CommandBox stuff and just it can start up in like milliseconds, it seems like, because it's not doing any of the JVM stuff. It's just saying, okay, let's run this jar, basically, boom. So there's a bunch of crazy stuff that it does, but just the secret stuff alone, you go look at that, because I was going to add configurations to it, and I'm like, oh, it should be easy. I'll just copy the secrets. I'm like, whoa, that's actually quite a lot of work that he's done to make it work. So anyway, so a lot of cool stuff in it, and you can do a lot with it. So read the docs up on Docker Hub, but the blog posts will cover most of that. So very cool. Thanks, John, for your hard work there, getting it updated as fast as Brad can keep CommandBox updated.
Absolutely.
So webinars and meetups. So we got a couple things in here. So remember the Audis event calendar. The link makes it easy for you to just see your Audis events as they come up. You might have noticed we actually changed a couple of things here. So we'll make an announcement in a minute. I'll just do it now and save Dan talking about it later. So the Audis webinar this week, we decided since we got so much videos and content out on CFCast, we're going to skip it and let everybody get everything ready for Christmas. So no Audis webinar this week. So
gotcha.
Just so you know. But next up, we have something else, right, Dan?
We do. So yeah, basically, so coming up is the winter edition on January 7th. I'm sorry, excuse me, that's completely wrong. It's the Community All Hands 7, the winter edition, which is the 7th. It's the Community All Hands, a quarterly online event that brings all the Docker community together. So as we release basically the new Docker version, we also have a new, not a huge, a big Docker meeting coming up. Global meeting features community news, company and product updates, demos, and language-specific sessions.
Yep.
And when is that?
It's the 15th and the 16th of December, so they'll start at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And the first day is more interactive, featuring talks, on the WASM and Docker extensions, interviews, etc. And then on the 16th, this Friday, it's a workshops day, so you can learn how to use Docker with your favorite programming language. And basically, it's all going to be up on YouTube. It's just kind of like it's like a mini conference, but kind of isn't. It's kind of interesting. So, community version. It's pretty neat. So if we scroll down a little bit here, you guys can see the sort of schedule. So, lots of little short, sharp ones are like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, pretty quick, but there's just tons of great content. And again, it's not a really long one. It's just a few hours each day, so you can still get some work done. But yeah, just a nice little thing to announce. So it's kind of a conference-y, but it's more of a webinar, so we shoved it in the webinar section, so I hope that's okay.
Sense. Links up in the chat.
Yep. And then last week I had the Software Craftsmanship Book Club, Patreon only, and we had another small little group, and we talked about naming conventions, and it was really interesting. To be honest, like it went for 2 hours, and we thought we better stop before we go on all day, because it was a good discussion. But the recording is up on CFCasts, and we'll share that for you. And then we obviously have a link in there to the Ortus coding conventions, which we may have to make some changes, actually. Looking at a couple things, I'm like, we need to maybe make a couple pull requests there. So, yeah. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. It's pretty neat, but I'm wondering, maybe we should open it up to the community. So, starting in the new year, we might open it up to the other people and not just Patreons, too. So, we want to get more people involved. And, I know it's coming up to Christmas, so maybe all the Patreons are busy, but it'd be nice to have a few more people in there just to make it more discussion, so.
I was surprised at actually how much there was to talk about, to tell you the truth, because it went for 2 hours, but it wasn't necessarily like rants, and it wasn't necessarily going off on huge tangents. I mean, just interesting content and some tangential stuff, but it was just really interesting to actually talk about. I'm like, how do you talk about naming things for 2 hours? But it actually brought up all kinds of like really interesting like philosophical differences, and what is this actually doing, and what is the meaning behind this? And you're like, I never thought about it, how parts of speech actually play into this, and this. It was, I don't know, it was really cool.
Yep, and I like basically what I like to think about it is if you really do think about things and how other people might see, your stuff, and that usually puts you on the right path. Because most people name something without thinking about all the different ways that other people might interpret it. So if you think about that, you're usually pretty good. But it was good, so. Yeah, and David said he'll show up if the next one's not during the World Cup. So, yeah. Argentina had a pretty exciting day that day. That was the day of 2 penalty shootouts, so pretty big. So, okay. So next up, CFcast content, obviously cfcast.com, where you can go for all your great CFML-related content. And we got lots of new stuff, right? So why don't you give us a rundown?
You do. Yep. As we mentioned before, it's the 12 Days of Christmas, starting last week on the 8th, which is last Thursday. Basically, going from the December 8th to Christmas Eve, the 24th. A couple things that have come up. So there's the ITB, the end of the box in this last year, 12 Days of Christmas. Some other content that's gone up is the Software Craftsman Workshop, or Craftsman Book Club that we just talked about. The ColdBox Master Class is now free, so you can kind of go through and binge watch that, even if you're not a subscriber. Check that out. Even if you've been using ColdBox for a while, there's still stuff that you've been gleaning. At least I've been gleaning from it, which is really kind of cool. We have the ForgeBox Module of the Week series. We have one new video this week, which was that the VS Code? No, that's a different series. I don't know what the actual Module of the Week one was that got posted, but go check it out. You can go see. Yeah, and also the 2022 VS Code Hint, Tip, and Trick of the Week series. There was a new video on that this week. So if you like that segment, that's on the podcast. It's been now chopped down into its own little segment, so it's more bite sized.
Yep, and that actually one of those videos is one of the most watched videos on YouTube. Is one of those little snippets from those videos. It's kind of interesting.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. And then we are working on more videos. So in the new year, you'll see some things. So I've been working on a boxifying third-party library. Eric has been working on a ColdBox Elixir series, and Daniel Garcia is going to be working on a ContentBox, getting started with ContentBox series, as well as more ForgeBox and VS Code podcast snippet videos as we get those released. So lots of cool stuff coming your way. And again, if you're a paid subscriber, all those ITB videos are being released. If you're not a paid subscriber, though, there is a free video every day. And so you guys got to go check out Dan's rant series on unpacking the box and how many boxes he could fit in one slide and one session. So we made that one free because it's a really good way to see all the different boxes and how they work together, and it's a really good session. So it was a really cool idea, and he evolved it over quite a bit of time, and I think it came pretty well. He might be a little short on breath after that one, but it was really good.
It was crazy.
Trying to fit it all in an hour and try to go through it all. And the funny thing was, after he's like, oh, I missed this box, and I missed that box, and yeah.
I know. I was like, how did I miss all these things? I went through all kinds of repos and everything else. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Luis afterwards was like, we thought we were going to have to call a paramedic up there. What was going on? I'm like, I just couldn't breathe. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, next up, conferences and trainings. So obviously conference season is over, but with CF Summit Online, you can see all the great sessions that were presented at CF Summit in Las Vegas, brought to you on your screen. And we've been seeing quite a few over the last few weeks, and I know that we've got one planned up here for the rest of the month, but I know we have some more in January, and to be honest, I haven't even booked my time yet, so once I figure that out, you'll know as well. So more coming December and January. But you want to tell us about the one coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, the one coming up on December 22nd, so 12/22/22. It is with Mark Nakata, obviously from Adobe, and the title is Native Mobile Apps with Monica. I assume that's how you say it, or Monica.io, and Adobe ColdFusion 2021. Basically, it's the idea that you would write this once, and it will compile down to all the different native apps. All right, so similar things have been happened in the past. This Monica.io leverages Adobe Cordova. And basically, you write your app in JavaScript, and Mark's going to go over how to actually make that happen using a ColdFusion backend.
Yeah, and so
kind of cool.
I didn't know this has been around that long. This is like 7 years old. So when I was watching it at CF Summit, I'm like, what? That's been around that long? So I don't know if it's just like a small little niche thing or not, but you actually have like an app you log in. It's very much like Adobe, how they had the the build stuff for the apps.
PhoneGap for a while or something.
Sort of the PhoneGap build type setup, but it looks like you can put your code in the app. It's very different. Not what I expected, but it's very interesting. So go check it out.
Is it like a Quasar kind of thing? Like basically, like you write it in a certain format and it compiles down to everything.
Yeah, but it looked like you're doing it all on their site. It was very different. Oh. So yeah, and like I said, it wasn't what I expected. I was expecting like another Quasar competitor or something like that, or one of those tools where you write it once and output it different ways. But yeah, it's interesting. So it's an online cloud IDE. So that's the weird thing. It's not like what I expected. But yeah, so I mean, go check it out. It was pretty interesting. And then you can go get more information at cfsummit-online.meetups.adobeevents.com, which I put in the chat already.
I'll also put a link in here for the Monica.io.
Yep, and then in case you missed it, Into the Box of the Tam was last week. It was sold out. It was a big success. Everybody had a blast down there. Everybody, ate, drank, enjoyed the time, spent a lot of time with lots of new people, a lot of students there. A lot of people hadn't learned any other languages or maybe just some Java from school, but they said it was really successful and they had a lot of fun doing it. And so it was great to hear some positive stories about that, and I know that we're going to just keep on growing that there. And yeah, I can't wait to maybe go down there, maybe next year or the year after. I'd like to try and make it down there. I got to work on my Spanish skills because they're non-existent right now. So
the pictures look like a lot of fun. Yep. And Edgardo bombed one of our meetings on not bombed, but basically joined one of the meetings, and he said, basically, here's what we're having for dinner, and here's the beach. Have a good time, and then jumped out. And I was like, thanks. That was awesome. I appreciate that because I'm in my room and it's snowing.
Yep. So what else we got coming up here?
Also coming up, Vue.js Amsterdam 2023. So this is coming up in February, the 9th and the 10th. It is the world's most special and largest Vue conference. There's a call for papers and blind tickets are available now. The couple of different websites, but it's Vue.js Amsterdam. Vue.js.amsterdam. Is that really the website?
That's what it is. Yep.
Yeah,
it's a TLD.
It's pretty cool. There's a .amsterdam end, evidently. There it is. Yep. Vue.js.amsterdam.
Yep. So we also have DevNexus coming up in April. So April 4th through 6th in Atlanta, the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Again, it's going to start at 9 a.m. local. 9 a.m. through basically 6 p.m. every day, and you can do it online. And obviously they're in the. I got this local time. I don't know who pasted this in.
I don't know who did either, but it's Eastern time, and 9 to 6 sounds about right. And if it's in Atlanta, it'd be Eastern time. So.
Yep. So if you are going to check that out, it's a lot of fun. Hoping to see if I get accepted to that one or not. I did post some stuff in. Some orders people submitted sessions, so we'll see what happens.
Cool. Now, has that call for papers closed yet, or is that that's done, right?
Yep, closed already about a month or so ago. So hopefully we'll be getting some answers here soon, so we can find out about that. But you can get some early bird tickets. They're not super early bird anymore, but they're still available, and it's a great conference. Lots of cool things. Even if you're not a Java developer, there's a lot of like JavaScript stuff as well, and build stuff, and that all applies to everybody. So
cool. All right. Well, coming up after that in May 12th and 15th. May 12th and 15th or through 15th?
Yeah, it's a repeat for online, so it's kind of confusing. Every week it gets us.
Gotcha. All right, that's Vue.js Live, not to be confused with the Vue.js that we said a minute ago, Amsterdam. This is Vue.js Live. This one's in London. Okay, so it's online and in London, the UK. It says Code, Create, and Communicate. 35 speakers, 10 workshops, 10,000 plus joining online globally, and 300 luckies meeting in London. All right, that's kind of a cool ratio. All right, early bird tickets are available. There's the 21. Also, they've released the 2021 recordings, and that is all located at Vuejslive.com.
Yep, and I'm gonna sneak in here with something else. So there's actually another one that we didn't announce in the right order. It's Vue.js Nation Conference. It's an online conference. It's actually going to be held in January. So we're out of date order here. Sorry about that, but it's going to be January 25th and 26th, 2023, and it's online. So you guys check that one out as well. That one's coming up soon, but it is online, and that's brought to you by Vue School.io. So if you guys are using them, they're great tutorials, and support them with that. And there's a lot of great stuff coming your way there.
Basically, whoever's doing the Vue.js conference organizing is very busy. That's great.
Yeah, Vue's hot, that's for sure. And then so back to your one. You said yours was on May 12th and 15th, and right after that, May 17th through the 19th, Into the Box 2023 10th edition. Call for speakers is open, so hopefully you guys can get your sessions submitted. We do like having new speakers. We do like having different content or different people producing that and providing that content, because like we like to hear Brad talk and he likes to hear himself talk, but we'd like to see other people talking about content, CommandBox too. And so it's great when the community member shows us how they're using it or how they're doing something or something that they did that was cool, and that's really pretty exciting. So we got a lot of cool plans for it. We'll tell you more as we get closer, but we'll be doing basically doing early bird tickets once we announce it, but super early bird blind tickets are available right now, and I should probably put the link up to that on the site. If you go to intothebox.org, there's actually the registration is available there, so let me copy the link here for you guys for that one, because it didn't put it in the show notes. So if you go to itb2023.eventbrite.com, you can get in there. So, yep.
All right. If you're not done jet setting, first you're at Vue.js Amsterdam, then you're heading over to London for the other Vue conference, then to Houston for Into the Box 2023. About a month later, CF Camp is back. So June 22nd and 23rd. That's being held in the Marriott Hotel in Munich. Well, the Munich airport, which evidently is nowhere near the airport, but whatever, that's fine. In Munich, it's a lot closer to the airport, the Munich airport than I am at the moment, so we'll go with that. All right, CF Camp, the call for speakers is coming up in the new year, and we'll know more as we get closer, I guess. So.
Yep, so lots of cool stuff there, and there's conf.take is another great place to find conferences, and if you're wanting to submit conferences, there's another GitHub link here, which I'll share, has just tons and tons and tons of developer conferences that you can look through. Whew, man, lots of stuff there, but we're not done yet. Blog tweets and videos of the week. We got lots of great content here as well. You want to talk about this one a little bit? I'm going to share my screen while you do.
Got a bunch of stuff. So blog tweets and weeks. We've already mentioned that basically the 12 days of Christmas. Okay, that's part of our blog. Basically, there's a link for that, and it just kind of goes through and said day 4's video come into the box. It's the conference, three sessions related to the ColdBox and features, CB validation, CB future, and ColdBox task scheduling. It's interesting. I'm going through this process now where I have a couple older projects that I've started at different periods in my life. And I'm trying to consolidate down into like one kind of code base. And it's funny. I'm going through and I'm realizing I had a whole section where I had a home-based thing on and realizing, oh, I was trying to build CB validation, but, Luis and Orta succeeded. And then I was trying to build something else. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to get rid of that whole section of code and I'm just going to have this module handle it. Which I just thought was kind of crazy. Sorry, just the whole thing about CB futures and the CB validation.
Yep.
It is amazing how much of my own code that I'm realizing, okay, this was kind of a cool start, but it didn't work as well as I thought it was. I'm going to use this instead. But CB validation was one of them. And it was amazing to me how easy it was to work.
Yep.
Validating code from the browser back into the end. So
Yep.
anyway.
So day 3, we also had a blog post on that, and this one here was yesterday. So we had 3 sessions related to modules. So what are modules? How do you build them? And a new module. So go check that one out. And the one for free that day was Dan Card's Unpacking the Box. Why so many boxes and what do they do? And then we had Scott Steinbeck's building modules, and then Dan Card had another one, CFScribe, which is actually a new module, but there wasn't room in the new module thing, and I know he's working on making this even better, so it's pretty cool. So
just had a new release last night, actually.
Yeah, wow, lots of cool stuff going on.
It was a formatting thing. Basically, SQL queries, when they were nicely laid out on the screen, were kind of overshooting all like the nice little tables we were doing. So I got that broken down so that the SQL looks a little nicer.
Yep. So next up,
I can hear David Belger like reading down our backs saying Argentina starting in 25 minutes. Dan, shut up. Okay, got it. Sorry.
So you were going to tell us a little bit more about the Ben Adele's one on serving secure files with CF content tags, file attribute in ColdFusion.
I did. So it actually you can kind of tell that Ben's actually starting about a new project. I don't mean that as a new venture. Just he's talking a lot about www root files and what actually goes this and how are you actually going to put what's going to go in the www root folder. That's a different blog, but this all has to do with how are you securing files that you want to deliver to the end user, but not necessarily have them in your root www root folder. He said the CF content tag is a great way to do that. It's basically the only way that you can stream a file from your hard drive to the browser without it being inside your www root. And he has some pros and cons of that. But yeah, it was fascinating because I mean, one of the projects, part of that project I was talking about when I was revamping a lot of stuff, one of that had to do with how are we going to deliver copyright images securely to the end user and make sure that no one actually can get them, get these copyright issues and stuff. And I'm realizing that I overlooked a really simple, relatively straightforward solution, which was just using CF content to do it.
As long as the file's not too big, then yeah, it's fine. The only thing is if the file is too big and you use CF content, then it's going through your server, so it's sucking up RAM as it's processing. So that's the only thing with that. So if you're doing smaller files, that's great. It works great for that. And then as you showed in that example, if you guys saw as I shared my screen, we actually had it where he had one file name and then he'd use a user-friendly file name. So when they clicked the image, it wasn't named some crazy file name. It was just lucy.jpg. And so that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Cool. Go check that one out. And then also we have day 2. So day 2, we're talking about all these newly announced ones. And so we got John Clausen, CB Commerce, Eric Peterson, CBQ, Eric Peterson, CB Playwright, which is the one we released for free. Michael Bourne had the melee search. And then Grant and Luis were talking about CBFS, the file abstraction. So lots of cool videos there. Again, just tons and tons of great content. So,
for those of you that don't know, Playwright is very similar, from what I understand, to Selenium. Is that correct? Basically, it's a browser automation tool.
Yeah, similar. Yep. So we're basically the same type of stuff. So it's actually pretty neat the way it works. Whenever you install it, it installs a local binary, and then from there it adds the extra pieces you need for basically your operating system, and then it sort of starts up a little in-browser tool like Selenium and does all the things you need to, and you can tell it to click on this button and type in this box, and it's very much like Selenium and everything else. So very cool. So you want to tell us about this tweet that Giancarlo
I do. So
shared?
Good news. I guess the debate is now over. According to Giancarlo, and according to an AI, he typed in is ColdFusion, or what is ColdFusion? And the AI came back basically saying ColdFusion is not dead. It is a vibrant community. What did it say? It's a strong community of people, of users and developers, continue to support and maintain the language. While it may not be as popular as it once was, it is definitely not dead. Although I do think this was interesting, is that next, like if you go down that tweet thread, he said, "Well, can ColdFusion use WebSockets?" Which, if you've never seen Giancarlo speak, and he's like a WebSocket guru. That's basically his thing, and talks about his, amazingly good at. And it says no, it doesn't. I get to see Giancarlo going. What? Thought it was kind of funny.
Yep.
Now, I was curious about this. If you're ever kind of, because I was actually wondering what AI did he actually ask,
Well,
and not to go too much into it, but it's this thing called GPT.
Yeah, it's based on the
GPT.
GPT-3 engine, which is like the big latest version of the AI engine out there. It's this major update of the GPT-2, and everything's backing it. And so a lot of apps now have AI versions of stuff in it, and even Canva, the drawing app, now has an AI tool in it. You know, if you're using Content Studio for social media like we are, it has an AI rewriter tool in it and stuff.
Oh, cool.
But there's a few out there. Jasper is probably the one that is the most popular, but obviously most expensive. I just got a lifetime membership to Word Hero, which is actually really good. I compared them. Me and Daniel Garcia were comparing the Canva stuff versus that, and Word Hero is pretty slick. So for the lifetime deal, it's a steal, and it's pretty interesting. But yeah, you can ask it what it can and can't do, and it's pretty interesting what it recommends. You know, but it's interesting. So it's it's not a fact checker, so I'm not sure if we can trust the answer there or not, but we'll see.
Well, I think the answer, we have personally verified that it is true. Sorry, it is AI or a CF is not dead.
Yeah. Next up, we have a blog post again about the Docker image, CommandBox Docker image. And so if we scroll down here, you can see these are those UB9, UBI things I was talking about that John has released. And so basically we added the Red Hat builds for the UB9 with all these different tags, changed the CommandBox version, removed the pruning of certain CommandBox modules to allow for more use cases. I think this is because it was removing all the ColdBox commands, so when people were using it to run ColdBox create app, it wasn't working. And they removed the 2016 builds because that is no longer supported. So pretty cool. And you see Docker pulls over 1.4 million, so it's being used. So pretty neat.
Wow.
What do we got next?
That's very cool. All right, let's go back to Ben Adele's blog as well. He had a really interesting one that it's kind of fascinating, because Ben has really been doing a lot of deep dive, not just on the tech part of what he's working on, but the philosophical underpinnings behind it. And so this one, he talks about he was talking about basically there's so much in development and programming in general that is subjective. And he talks about everything. We have debates on everything from white space to tabs versus spaces to whatever, IDEs and personal and else. But he goes, this is really interesting. And he also was very clear, saying this is not so much a declarative statement about tab spaces or things, but in white space in general. Okay. And he talked about it's not so much a matter of that we code and then we add white space to make it more memorable or make it more readable. He goes, maybe the idea is we want to start with too much white space and back off of it, which I thought was really kind of an interesting way of putting it, because usually we're kind of like, how do we focus, put as much stuff into the screen as we possibly can, so we don't have to scroll and things, but that also can make things more confusing than it needs to be. So what he highlights here is a tool that he kind of put together where you can dynamically change the tab size, and you kind of see how it makes a difference about how something is actually is going to be formatted on the screen. I mean, it was a really interesting thing, and so you can actually load it up and change the tabs using the arrow keys, which is just kind of fascinating. I thought it was really interesting. But just the whole idea of starting from the other side. It's not a matter of, he said, adding white space basically gets to the point where it doesn't suck. If you start with more than you need and you scale down, then you're like, all right, I've actually gone down to a point where I like it. Not just doesn't suck, but actually is good. Because he basically says, look, we're delivering code. We're just delivering it in a different format. The code IDE, the code layout basically is a UI that is obviously different than the browser UI, but it's the UI to the developer, and let's make it as easy to use as possible. Which I was like, no. Okay,
Yeah, I
makes a lot
mean,
of sense.
it's even as something like VS Code by default, when you look at the folder indentation, I
Hmm.
can't tell if something in a folder or not. So I go and change that to like 30 for the sitting.
Yeah,
And now I can actually see the depth of the folders, and it makes a huge difference. And then that's
exactly.
another
No,
reason
that's
like
true.
I like the tabs over spaces is because I can have a decent amount of space between the gutter, and I only have to do
Hmm.
like a couple of clicks. I don't have to go through 16 clicks to get 4 indentations in because I'm doing 4 spaces. And
Yep.
that's the cool thing about IDEs. They can, you can do spaces, but when you open
Hmm.
that file in your IDE, you can say, hey, my IDE works in tabs. Convert those 4 spaces to one tab. Let me do my
Right.
code, and when I save it, I can put that tab back into 4 spaces, so it saves the file in the format you should be, that everybody else expects.
Right.
So use your IDE, use those little settings to make your life easier.
Mhm.
You know,
Use
again,
CF format. Set the take time to do the right settings.
yep, exactly. Well, next
Cool.
up we have something from James Moberg, and so this is a performance improvement tip. And I like how he shares his like sort of mental process here. But he was caching repetitive UTF access in the request scope using an argument stringified hash key. So basically, he was looking at some stuff and he was realizing that over time, 57 of the queries were basically all similar and they were cached, and it started to add up. And so he's like, well, maybe I can start playing with some hash codes, and then basically, try to cache the UDF, try and make it a little bit faster. And so he was actually using this, and you know, just improves the speed. So he has a little gist up here as well. So basically checks to see if the function name that he created here with a cache and everything else is in the request scope. If it is, it just returns that. Otherwise, it does the work, creating it, etc. And so this is a good example of if you're using something or doing something which it takes a big hit, and he's got to sleep in here for like 1 second. So if you're doing something that has to go out to an external API, get some data, format it, whatever, do something, and then return it. If you're doing that 50 times in a request, it's going to be expensive. So you may want to cache the result. And usually caching it in the same request. If you call it once during that request, you don't care if it changes during that request usually. So this can give you some pretty big speed improvements. And look, Ben's even there talking about it too. So
Yep. There you go.
pretty cool.
Cool. All right. Well, the next item that I have here basically is again with the 12 days of Christmas. It's day one, which I think we've kind of covered. There's nothing specific on there that it said that it was released. So I don't actually know what was released on day one.
Yeah,
But
just two
basically,
keynotes and the
we were going to
Lucy
wait till the
piece.
24th, but then we couldn't wait. So,
Yep, couldn't wait till the 24th, and we decided, let's add more free stuff because we want to be nice. Merry Christmas. So,
mhm.
yep. And then we also had the CommandBox 5.7 release, so that was released as well. So we'll share that
Cool.
link as well for you guys. And then last but not least, Ben's got one more, right, Dan?
One more about I alluded to before, but basically about the WW root folder. He says basically the last several years he's been working on huge projects that he's maintaining as opposed to starting up new ones. And so as a result, he's converting one of his it was an Angular app that he had. I forget the actual one.
Big
Excuse
Sexy
me.
Poems?
Yes, that's what it was. Yes, the Sexy Poems one. Basically into a ColdFusion app, and he's kind of face all of a sudden with like a blank canvas, so to speak. He's like, all right, I can do whatever I want. So he's kind of thinking through what actually goes in the WW root. And he brings up a good point. Every file that's in that root folder basically broadens your attack vector. Like any one of those could actually is publicly accessible. And how much are we going to put in that folder? And when you start off, you're putting everything in that. And he goes, and that gets you pretty far. He goes, but then when you want to start thinking a little more strategically about what needs to be actually public and what doesn't need to be public. What can you deliver through the CF content, which brings in the other blog? What can you deliver different ways? He was interesting because he also talked about one of the attack vectors a couple of years ago was people were able to use WYSIWYG editors, and they were be able to find a way that the WYSIWYG editor was actually uploading to a public folder, and in the like nanoseconds between when it uploaded it and changed the file name, they were able to actually hit that file and execute some code before the name change happened, which I thought was a really interesting.
Yeah, that's why you always
Process.
upload to a temporary folder outside the web root, so that can't
Exactly.
happen. Yeah, that's a really popular one. Yep,
Yeah.
and
Which I had never actually thought about before and everything else, but it just he goes, it's he basically says it's interesting. How often do you start off with a blank screen, like a blank slate, and just think through why you did certain things that you did automatically way back in the day? So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and Adam actually wrote a post, and that was linked into the comment there, and he's in the chat too, saying, and this is like, just because something's easy doesn't mean it, it should be a good practice, and CFML Frameworks calls this, and he's right. Some of the assets and stuff,
Yep.
if you install a module, we install it into the modules directory, which could be outside the web root because ColdBox allows you to adjust that. But if that module includes images and style sheets, then it doesn't work if you're trying to include those from outside the web root into your browser. So it's a problem. So then we have to have okay, when you upload this module, this needs to be web accessible. This doesn't, so it gets more complicated. And so
add these aliases, add this, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing is right now, it's hard to do it the right way, and it becomes an issue. And so if you want to pull all your ColdFusion out of it, then that's something you should do. Although the application CFC does take root, and if your on request start looks for external entry points that hits ColdFusion files, that would be something. But there's other things in those modules too. So that's the other thing too. If you're installing something via like a Git clone, you're not cleaning up files. Same for ForgeBox. If you're using a Git repo, you're getting all those files in the repo. If you use a build process, you only include the pieces you want. So if you're using ForgeBox to wrap your package, make sure you have the ignore file, so it won't package the files that you shouldn't be packaging. So that way you don't get all the extra stuff that you may not want there.
That'd be an interesting feature, either for CommandBox or for ForgeBox. Basically, you can tag something, and in a sense, when you upload it, it kind of has two different modules. One is the code, the other one may be assets. The assets one could be actually stored one place where it's just easily spit out, but then the one that is secure by default would actually be installed to a modules app folder outside of the web root.
Yeah, and Adam just said it's only complicated once, when you do it, and that's a good idea, Daniel. I mean, basically, that when you have assets for repos, you need to have a UI version, so it's a dependency of that other app, but it gets installed in a different location. So, but the thing is, if you install a dependency of a module, it installs as a child of that module. So you need to almost
so that would be
you need to have it where it's a peer dependency. So when you install this, you must also install this to be able to get all the assets. And so that's where it gets tricky. So, but it's something we do need to be considerate of, But again, we do run this against security checks. We do run, all this stuff. But you have to be less concerned about a lot of the security if it's not in the web root. If it is in the web root, you got to do everything else right, and someone can still mess that up. So,
it's true that it is only complicated once at a time, because it's going to be complicated now. But then when I forget how to do it in 6 months from now and have to do it again, I got to go back and relearn it again. But to your point, though, you are correct. It's hard once, and then you kind of go out from there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, it's something we should be aware of, and that's something I've said too, because I've tried to do that and tried to pull stuff into a different folder, and it's it's the whole issue of okay, well, we've got to change a lot of things for it to work. You can't use this module because now that module's assets don't exist. So, yep, I think we should have some approach to doing that, and I know other frameworks do it in other languages. We got to figure out the way to do it. So.
All right, we've got 9 minutes until Argentina, so I think we need to start a really deep philosophical conversation right now, just for fun, just to make David squirm a little bit. No,
he'll just leave. So,
he'll just leave. Good point.
So,
all right, coming up though, CFML jobs.
Yep.
7 positions available on getcfmljobs.com. We have over 34 ColdFusion positions from 23 companies across 21 locations in 5 countries. There you go. 23 companies, 21 locations, 5 countries since August 1st. One new job listing this week. Actually, there's a couple. We mentioned the 2 up before. One new here, which we'll get into the one from tomorrow's guides in a minute. This is a full-time ColdFusion developer. It can be remote. It's in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, here in the U.S. That was posted on December 9th. Go check it out at cfmljobs.com.
Yep, and I'll tell you about tomorrow's guide. So, as I mentioned before, they're a fast-paced leader in the UK care sector. They cater for care seekers across 3 areas: care homes, nurseries, and home care. Their product team consists of over 20 individuals across the UK working remotely to expand their offering, and they're trying to improve their team. They work with both ColdFusion 2021, Node, React, and in the Azure cloud, and they're using both MS SQL and MongoDB databases, and they're looking for a senior ColdFusion developer and an automation tester, and they got some pretty cool perks as well. So you want to tell us about those jobs in more detail?
Yeah, the senior CF developer, basically you need to be based in the UK. It can be remote, but based in the UK. It's 60K euro a year. Or excuse me, I keep doing that. I apologize. It's pounds. I said it before, 60,000 pounds a year. not euros. Stupid American. All right, minimum of 3 years experience with ColdFusion. Be knowledgeable about database design, normalization, and ability to write, understand complex queries using MS SQL in SQL Server in 2019. Familiarity with Git and a flexible skill set covering a wide range of development tools. That's their senior CF. Their automation test engineer, also based in the UK, although it can be remote. It's a permanent position, approximately 40K pounds. Minimum 3 years experience with automated testing, experience with automated testing tools such as Selenium. I don't know if they'll take Playwright or not, but whatever, they're Selenium. Experience with API test tools such as Postman, Fiddler, etc.
Yep. So they got some good benefits too for those roles. They got the 4,000 per annum discretionary company bonus. They've got 25 days leave plus bank holidays. They've got the 6% employer pension contribution, some other perks and other things too. But it sounds like a good company to work for.
Yeah.
So we got some other links as well. So Ordis is hiring.
The job links.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. Ordis is hiring. There's a jobs channel in the CFML Slack team and the Box team now, and the Box team Slack too.
Yep.
You can check that out.
Yep, and again, Get CFML Jobs is a great place to look, and they have Twitter announcements too, and they release new jobs, so check that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so our ForgeBox module of the week this week is an older one that hasn't been updated for a while, but I think it's just because it works, and it's the Wirebox Visualizer. Have you used this one before, Dan?
I haven't. I actually didn't know it existed, but to be honest, I was last night trying to figure out how to dump out what there was in my Wirebox, and so this would have been handy. This is a very educational podcast. I learned a bunch by doing it.
Yep. So the module does create a nifty representation of all your CFCs in your application that Wirebox manages and what they have injected into them. It's pretty neat. The only thing is it doesn't pick up transients unless your code runs, so it knows they're there. So it's usually the application mapping. So if you have your modules folder will get mapped, your models folder will get mapped, and so all those stuff gets mapped. So you'll see those, but you won't see transients necessarily unless your code picks those up too.
The 2-second explanation, basically, for those of you that are relatively new to the podcast, Wirebox is the dependency injection module that's built into ColdBox, so it can be used independently. If you're not quite sure what dependency injection is, think about this. You have components that are instantiated, but instead of actually instantiating them at runtime from your hard drive, you basically say Wirebox instantiate, or basically kind of organizes them all at the beginning. When it starts up, you ask Wirebox for your component, and it comes with all kinds of other goodies that go along with it.
Yeah, it's like if you're at a restaurant, you're like, hey, I want a meat pie. You don't tell it, hey, exactly. I want pastry, and then when they get the pastry, you're going to put it in this, you don't tell them the recipe. You're like, I want a meat pie, or I want lasagna. You don't have to tell them what it comes with, how to put it together, or anything else. Wirebox is your chef, and it gets delivered to you the way you want it, the way you need it, and hopefully nice and hot. So that's the Wirebox Visualizer up on ForgeBox, and you guys can install that and use it, and find out more about what's in your app. It's really great to try and figure out those circular dependency problems too. Sometimes that throws you. Although I'm not sure if it'll work on a loop like that, because it might get caught trying to output them too. But it's definitely a real helpful tool. So,
but maybe it'll tell you where it actually broke, which would be nice.
Okay, VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. What do we got this time?
We have a Vue language features in Volar, Volar.
Yep,
you can bring it to one of the conferences on Vue.
Yeah, and so one of the new things with Vue is they're using Vue or VitePress Vue 3, and so it's a new tool. And so if you're using some of the Vue 3 stuff, you got to use Volar. So, basically, it's one of those things that you need to use, and it calculates everything, sort of on demand. It does some basically evaluation for you as you go. It's pretty neat, and if you are using TypeScript, it gives you even more performance improvement stuff too, because it does actually do a lot of stuff there. So I just started using it. I disabled Viter, which is really useful for when you're doing Vue 2 stuff. But I'm trying to Volar stuff out, and so far I like it. It does what it needs to do. So go check that one out. Up on the marketplace, it's vue.volar.
Cool. All right, sounds good. We got 3 minutes to do all this. I don't know why we're racing the soccer match, but at the same time, it's kind of a good cutoff time.
Yep.
Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. These individuals are personally supporting our open source initiatives to ensure the great toolings like CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, ContentBox, TestBox, and all the other boxes keep getting the continuous development they need. And funds the cloud infrastructure our community relies on, like ForgeBox for our package management with CommandBox.
Yep, so you can go to Order Solutions Patreon account, patreon.com/ordersolutions. Remember, end of the year, 10%, great for business if you want to write some stuff off, write off a membership and support all the cool stuff that Ordis is doing. Remember, you get bronze packages and up. Now get a ForgeBox Pro and a CFCast subscription. If you sign up for that bronze package, you get to watch all the ITB videos included. So that's pretty neat. And then we've got the Patreon supporters. They have their profile badge on the community website. They have their own private forum on the community website. And now they have a few new things on Slack too.
Yeah, for example, the private channel access in the Box team with Slack, the live stream access to streams like Coding with the Kiwi and Friends, and also the Ordis Software Craftsmanship Book Club. And all that can be found at community.ordissolutions.com.
Yep.
I'm laughing because in the chat we have half of the people that are saying, "Hey, that's great, we're going to watch the game," and the other half are saying, "This is more interesting than football." So basically, we have a very unscientific poll. 50% of ColdFusion developers like football, and 50% don't. We're split in a way.
Yeah, no, he didn't say he didn't like it. He says this is more interesting.
That's a good point. And when the bar is this high, you know it's good. So that makes sense.
Okay, well, I'm going to read the first half of the Patreons, and I'll let you tackle the second half. So thank you, John Wilson from Synaptrix, Tomorrow's Guides, Jordan Clark, Gary Knight, Mario Rodriguez, Giancarlo Gomez, David Bellinger, the Argentinian fan, Dan Card, that's you, Jeffrey McGee from Sunstar Media, Dean Maunder, Nolan Irk, Vil de Bruin, and Abdul Rahim.
Then we have Don Bellamy, Joseph Lamore, Jonathan Perrette, Jan Yannick, Lakshmi Tirtahadi, Brian Gidanelli. I'm sorry, Brian. It's not the hard of the last name. I just can't do it. Carl von Stetten, Jeremy Adams, Didier Lesnicki, Matthew Clemente, Scott Steinbeck from Agri Tracking Systems, Daniel Garcia, Ben Nadal, Richard Herbert, Ben DeLine, Kai Koenig, Charlie Earhart, Jason Dagger, Sean Odom, Ross Phillips, Matthew Darby, Edgardo Cabezas. You can't say his name without doing the accent. Patrick Flynn, Stephanie Monge, Kevin Wright, John Wish, Peter Amiri, Kevin Vanis, John Nessum, and our single-named Tia. If you want to be on this list, you can.
Yep, and just so you know, it's Brett DeLine, not Ben DeLine, but good try, Dan.
Did I really screw that up? I apologize, Mr. DeLine.
I'm sure Brett will forgive you. But ordersolutions.com/about-us/sponsors. That is the show. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy all the great 12 days of Christmas. And don't forget to go support Argentina in the Soccer World Cup.
Or Croatia, whatever. We're not taking sides,
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great week. And, thanks, Adam. And you guys have a great one. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Sounds good. See ya.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.